Okay, so I believe that we are now live to the world. Okay, so let's start with introductions. And from left to right, we have Kathy, Heather, Monica, and myself. So Kathy, go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience, if you would.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kathy Sereno. I'm a transgender veteran who lives in Columbia, Missouri. I'm an avid advocate and activist and constantly fighting for our rights.
Hi, Kathy.
I'm Heather O'Malley. I'm a trans vet who served in the Army. Currently living in Middleton. I've worked with Monica in Teva before. Currently working with Veteran Service Corps, which is an outgrowth of Veterans Stand for Standing Rock. And so basically advocating for all sorts of things.
Thank you, Heather, and I'm glad that you're here. There's a little bit of lag when you talk, but we hear you. Go ahead, Monica.
Hello, my name's Monica Helms. I'm a Navy veteran, served 8 years in the Navy on 2 submarines. I kept the Russians from blowing us up.
Thank you.
And so I'm very happy to be here and to speak to all of you. So, you guys, let's go.
Excellent. Okay. So one of the key questions that I want to start with is, and I don't know if this is a good question to start, but something that I'm personally curious about is, what do you think is the driver behind this ban? I don't personally perceive 45 to be a particularly transphobic or homophobic person. He seems to be very opportunistically bigoted. And it occurs to me that there are political forces that he's trying to appease, or it could potentially just be a distraction. So I was curious if you guys had opinions as to where the heck did this come from and why now, and why specifically towards the transgender population. Heather.
I think a lot of it is he is pandering to his base. A lot of his base are very transphobic, are very evangelistic Christian. And so they have very on what gender roles are, and trans individuals are a threat to this world. And so as his approval rating is dropping, he needed to get something to keep his base up a little bit more. And what he did is he threw trans people under the bus with this ban, which has morphed a couple of times since his tweet storm.
Yeah, that's correct. And by the way, I think that it's so odd that we have matters of national security and of national policy being defined through tweets. I don't know how this has become a status quo, and we're all kind of just assimilating this as the new normal. It's really odd. Go ahead, Monica.
Yes, I totally agree with Heather, because he is just doing nothing but listening to his far-right Christian advisors that constantly come into his office, and they're always praying with him, and so he has to make them feel good by doing stuff that they want done, and we're one of the targets. Jeff Sessions just went in and decided to take away everybody's rights, saying that trans people are okay to be discriminated against because apparently we're not real people, according to him. So,
well, just expensive people, I think is his point.
But we're not that expensive, really, as far as trans veterans go, or trans service members.
Mm-hmm.
He only cost the government $8 million in out of the healthcare budget of the military. That's compared to $41 million for Viagra. So if you really wanted to save money, you should kick everybody out that has erectile dysfunction. That makes more sense.
It does, or potentially to stop catering to cis hetero soldiers in such a strange manner in terms of their sexuality, and just have them serve and focus on protecting the country instead of getting laid.
Yeah. Just like if he were to stay home and not play golf for 2 weekends, that would cover the cost of medical treatment for transgender people in service for a full year.
Yeah, that's potentially would be an even better solution, but I don't know. That golf seems to be pretty necessary to running the country. Heather? Yeah, Heather.
Uh-oh, Heather froze up.
Yeah.
Yeah, the operation report that Monica mentioned about the fact, yeah, a huge amount spent on Viagra, people who have heart conditions. It's all dysfunction medication. And the fact that, you know, trans servicemen and women can go through trans a fraction of that cost just goes to show that it's not a money issue even remotely. It's simply about pandering to people who are transphobic.
Yeah, and it seems very out of left field also because of the fact that in terms of attacks or narratives that would attack the transgender population, something that the Christian right or the religious extremist ideologies seem to delight in is to scream out, think about the children, think about the children. And so I've seen initiatives that usually target more transgender youth or trans people in schools. It seems very non sequitur to focus on the trans military personnel who have been doing a great job. There have been no issues, there have been no complaints. And all of a sudden, this becomes somehow a center stage issue for the United States. And actually, apparently, it is actually more expensive to phase the trans people out of the military. That has a very high cost too, right, Heather?
Yes, it does. General Mattis, who's Secretary of Defense, was actually rather surprised by the tweet storm since it occurred when he was on vacation. He and all of his had not even remotely heard of it. So he gets blindsided, and he has, you know, tried several different ways to shove this off. He's aware of the cost of treating trans servicemen and women compared to basically every single one of them off to get them out of the Corps or whatever service they're in. It's expensive to do that. More expensive than just to give them treatment.
One more thing that caught my attention is that his tweet specifically said, after extensive consultation with my generals, everything I've read from Mathis and other generals indicates that they were completely and utterly blindsided by this, and there had been no previous conversation on the subject.
Yeah, he didn't speak to anybody.
They know I.
Yeah, I think that it's just another lie that he tells because he thinks that whatever he says, people are going to believe because he's Donald Trump, and so he could say whatever he wants, and people are going to say, "Yeah, that's what happened." But in reality, you know, he's living somewhere in a different reality. His reality doesn't exist in our world. So,
go ahead, Kathy.
I think part of it, and a big part of it, is a typical sleight of hand, trying to draw attention away from other things that are going on. You know, like at the time, I believe it was the investigations into his family members and stuff like that. to draw attention away from that and pull attention onto a vulnerable minority.
I'm just very surprised that nobody is in what I see, at least the way I see it, outside of the New York Times and CNN. There's not enough of a. This is obviously a red herring. This is obviously a non-issue, and also clearly a blatant lie in terms of I've consulted with my generals. Yes, Heather.
You various things. That's a very branch commander said. They've all come out very strongly in support of the.
Heather, you're breaking up. You're breaking up so badly that it's really, really hard to hear you. I'm wondering if would it be possible for you to maybe use just a regular phone to get into the conference?
Oh, I would love to if my phone weren't dead.
Okay, let me see if I can pass you off. I'm going to look for that, but for now, go ahead with your point. We'll power through. We'll do our best.
Yes, the various heads and mags all come out with the Obama era trying to phase in trans men. You know, really hesitant because that it wasn't handled correctly, had a negligible impact.
I'm sorry, Heather. We are having a lot of trouble understanding you because we're catching every other word. I'm going to try to find another way to patch you back into the call. Monica, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I know what Heather's talking about. It's you know, anything that the Obama era, anything that Obama did is something that he wants to get rid of. I hope, shake your head, Heather, if that's about where you were going. Yeah, okay. I don't want to misinterpret you. So it's they want to just anything that Obama did, good, bad, or indifferent, they want to get rid of. So it's that's why Obamacare is on the chopping block. You know, repeal and replace, but they can't do either. So the basic thing is that we're easy to screw over. So consequently, we're a target, we're an easy target. And
I seem to have read that a senator out of Missouri was one of the big pressure points for this to start happening. Kathy, are you aware of any groups in Missouri pushing this agenda?
Vicky Hartzler is the big voice behind that here in Missouri. Unfortunately, she's my representative. And as far as what groups that are behind her, I mean, there hasn't really been a lot of talk on the groups that have given her personal motivation. I've been at her office in DC and here in Columbia to speak to them, and they just like talking to a brick wall.
Do you get the impression that it's just deeply rooted in bigotry, or is there this kind of bigotry light where it's just justified and rationalized in terms of what's convenient or appropriate or something like that?
Oh, I believe it's completely in bigotry because none of her rationales and none of her numbers and none of it plays out. You know, none of it matches up to anything. They're just like everything, all her numbers and all that stuff. It's all made up. None of it's based on fact. And from her positions in the past on LGBT issues, I mean, it's pretty clear that she has a very big disdain for the LGBT community. And that's, you know, and I'm pretty sure that's motivation behind this.
There are a lot of people on the right who their motivation seems more faith-based is fact-based. because their priest told them this is bad, must be stopped, then that's what they believe. And it doesn't matter if you show up with all the facts and information and what have you. They have already made up their mind. Nothing you can say will change that.
And I'm not, please excuse me, I'm a foreigner to begin with. I'm an immigrant here, and I'm not really as aware of the political process as many of you have become. What are the venues by which something like this could be changed? Obviously, going and knocking on their door when their mind is already petrified like this seems to be pointless. What other influencers can we appeal to? Yes, Monica.
The only power we have is in the voting booth. We can't stop. These people will never change their minds. I live in Georgia, and Georgia is probably the belt buckle of the Bible Belt. And let me tell you, these people here are so ingrained in what they believe in. The Republicans in this area, that they don't really want to listen to anything. Facts don't mean anything. There is no such thing as facts.
Right. So if appealing to them is not an option, I think Heather might have a thing. Heather, if I can ask you to speak slowly, that way it doesn't break up so badly.
Okay. Another thing besides voting booth, like Monica, was simple ability. Things that the marriage right debate visible LGBT people, and people start noticing that you aren't bizarre and you aren't eat their children or some ridiculous notion, they calm down. That showed in various polling data over the years, LGBT perception has changed in the positive. Point now where it's tipping point, and LGBT is basically positive. Where you're getting dialogue negativity is from a smaller group of people who are trying to draw their story over the story that the entire nation seems to be agreed on.
I caught most of that, and I'm sorry, Heather, but the connection is just so poor with you. And I've just texted you. I don't know if you can see the text coming in, but I've texted you the link to the YouTube channel where you could actually just chat your points right in there, and then so you can hear us okay, but we cannot hear you when you talk. So potentially you could just write your points here. We'll read them out for you. Did you get this link?
Oh. Couldn't she maybe shut off her camera and just be mic'd?
Yes, potentially that would improve it. Yeah, if you could shut off your camera and just be on the mic, potentially that would consume a lot less bandwidth.
There.
Try, say something now.
Is that any better?
A lot better.
Okay.
Could you repeat your point then?
Yes, I can repeat my point. If you look at polling data, ongoing for years, shows that there's been a massive shift in the perception of the LGBT community. That's a major effect on the maritality debate, because people just got over themselves and decided it was a non-issue. Polling data shows that most Americans don't care about individuals in the military or in the bathroom. It's just not important to their life. But it is a smaller community. This farther right, very religious, is making as much noise as humanly possible to try and shift the debate their direction.
Okay, so it seems to me that the two forces that are allowing this to really push forward in a really big way are A, the fact that the very religious base is not fact-driven, it's just ideology-driven, and facts are not going to dissuade them in any way, and that they just have a position of enmity towards the LGBT population. And the other point is that the larger population, the larger voter base at large, just simply does not care about this issue because it doesn't affect them personally. Would you ladies agree with that assessment?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Monica.
Yeah, it's true that it's the more they know about us, the better it is for us. We mentioned visibility, and visibility is extremely important because they see us and they interact with us. They know what we are. They know how we act. What they see that we are good people. That they spend some time with us, and it works out for our advantage. That the thing is that the gay community had a lot more people to be visible with. We are still low on numbers. We don't have the amount of people that the gay, lesbian, and bisexual people have. So we have to pretty much constantly be visible at their offices, the legislators' offices, be visible in Washington, be visible in our state capitals. Just constantly be visible. The more they hear about us, the more they know, and their fact, they then start making a decision. Now, this is obviously not the religious right people that we're talking about. And so, you're going to have those legislators that will not change their mind, even if the rapture came, and didn't take them away. And so we have to constantly be visible to all the other people that you say don't feel that this is important to them. Well, they find out that, hey, I know a trans person. It's now important to me because I don't want anything to happen to this person.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people in the military that are trans. I don't want anything to happen to them. And so voting booth is a big place, but visibility is also big. And if you notice, we're not on television a lot. We're not.
That's very noticeable.
Yeah, we don't have any lead role in any show.
Monica.
Yeah.
There is in a TV show that's extremely popular called The Fosters. A story about a trans individual in a relationship with one of the primary characters. That gets us nice, front, center, and visible in a large network television show. So it's happening. It's just happening.
That's just one show.
Yeah, it's not specifically about the political issues of the day. I mean, Laverne Cox is on TV as well, but one thing that Monica was saying that really kind of made me think is the fact that this actually is incredibly smart strategically because of the fact that it attacks such a localized weak point. So we're not attacking all the LGBT population. I mean, I'm not going to say we. They're not attacking the larger LGBT population, which would potentially put up a larger fight. They're not even attacking transgender people as a whole. They're attacking the trans military people. So a large percentage of the mainstream population wouldn't care because they're not LGBT. A large percentage of the LGBT population wouldn't care because they're not trans. A large percentage of the trans people wouldn't care because they're not military, leaving a very, very small concerned number of people trying to fight this fight. Yes, Kathy.
Yeah, that may have been the strategy at the start, but as we've seen in the last week, the fight is not just anymore 15,000 active duty service members. With the the employment guidance being totally changed, and now the religious exemptions being trying to be, that they're pushing to change now. Now, I mean, now that they've got their foot in the door with the military ban, now they're using that as a license to discriminate across the board, and now it's looking like millions of LGBT people, are now under the chopping block, and military ban was just like to get the foot in the door.
By the way, there's a point being raised by one of the audience members, talking about the fact that this administration just stood shoulder to shoulder with Syria in allowing the right to execute gays against the UN proposition that the death penalty against homosexuality should be banned, which is incredibly chilling in terms of where this administration stands in terms of LGBT rights.
Oh, exactly. Just what I was saying, as far as just this week, it's like they've opened the floodgates this week.
Mm-hmm.
And like most books explaining how fascism works, they start, and as they start to feel something like momentum, they start picking up speed and widening their targets, because people start to get fatigued fighting things, and so you eventually run out of things to stand against these that are ruining our country.
Heather, could you try dropping the call and rejoining it?
Sure.
It's such a shame that I just cannot hear when she talks. I'm not sure what the technical problem could be or how to fix it.
I don't know. This is new to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I've used Slack before, and it looks like almost every time she talks, there's like some feedback coming off of Monica's. Right about the same time, if you're looking at the little bars at the bottom, when she talks, it's like sometimes there's a little feedback coming in off of Monica's.
Oh, so that's actually a pointer. Monica, potentially your speakers could be triggering some of this. So if we can get on headphones, that would really be helpful.
All right, let me get the headphones.
Thank you. Kathy, you've been actively participating in the political process in things like this. What advised course of action, or what would you be impelled to do in terms of raising some opposition to this?
The biggest thing is put ourselves out there to educate people. And as like Monica said, ultimately it's at the ballot box that we're going to make change. And to do that, we have to get the vote. And to do that, we got to become more visible. We got to be more visible to the public, because human beings by nature are afraid of what they don't understand. And when they don't, and then when they fear something, then anger comes in. And for people that have never met a trans person, they don't understand. And my experience has been that when somebody meets me, and I'm the first transgender person they've ever met, by the time I finish talking to them, almost every single time, they're like, "Wow, you're just a normal person, just like nothing what I expected." And we need more of that. We need more, to constantly be out there educating the public on who we are, and not just a few voices, the same dozen big voices all the time. We need as many trans and non-binary people as possible, that are able to speak out. I understand that not everybody is in a position they can, but the more people, the more different people in the umbrella that put themselves out there, the better it's going to be for all of us.
Yes, Monica.
Let's have Heather try talking again. What I did, I apparently plugging in the headphones is not the thing. The sound is coming from the television that I have attached to this. And if I unplug the television, I'm not getting sound anywhere else. So the only sound coming in is off the television, off the monitor, the big monitor. I cut the volume down on the speaker. That monitor to see if that will work. So Heather, go ahead and say something.
Can you hear me now?
Better.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Somewhat.
Bueller?
No, I think it's still the same problem. I don't think it has improved. I'm sorry.
Yeah, then it has to do with my feedback.
System. Okay. Yeah, I rebooted my system, so it's as good as it'll get.
Okay, well, I heard that sentence loud and clear. I was asking Kathy what we can do in terms of advocacy and activism. What would be the next points? And Kathy's talking about being as visible as we can possibly be. And in what shape would this visibility take place? Would it be a matter of calling local broadcast news? Would it be a matter of going to local administration offices? Or would it be standing in front of Walmart with a little table?
Yes.
I think a lot of protests going on, and showing up with something indicating you're a transgender will get you visibility and will add trans voice to other debates, which increases our visibility and increases our support. So I don't think we necessarily need a table in front of Walmart, because I don't think that's going to end well unless you have Girl Scout cookies.
We could bring cookies.
Join the dark side. We have cookies.
Yes. Okay. So now I think that you're talking about potentially organizing a march or two, and I think that would be a splendid idea, and potentially getting the larger LGBT base involved.
Yeah, a march or a protest geared specifically towards this could be very powerful if done correctly. If it's done kind of, haphazardly, it could end up working to other people's favor. So you want people to be on the same page when you start marching. And hopefully they understand the talking points when someone shoves a microphone in their face.
Absolutely, yes. Do not dilute the message and do not sound like you're rambling when you're... Yes.
Well, this Saturday is the beginning of Atlanta Pride, and Saturday is the Trans March, and we're pretty visible out here when we do that. So that's one way. There's but I think a trans march on Washington is a good idea, but how would we organize that when trying to get trans people together is like herding albino blind cats?
Very true.
Yes.
By the way, Veterans Day is coming up, and it occurs to me that this would be an appropriate thing to do on Veterans Day.
Yeah, this would be a good Veterans Day hoorah.
Or is that too far?
Yeah, I've actually heard from my local VA. They're wanting to do something. Haven't heard back from them since I agreed to help them any way they want it. But it'd be nice, and things like that could help draw visibility. Getting the VA involved around Veterans Day, and maybe do something to draw attention.
Also, Monica, many of us are not in a position to go to Washington because of finances. So I'm wondering if we could all just basically show up in our city and just make it a national presentation. We could potentially leverage social media in some way. For example, we could all show up in some place, either city hall or some local place of visibility, and then take a bunch of selfies, post them in all social media, and say, here we are, making it a little bit more obvious that we're out there. These are just ideas I'm coming up with. Yes, Monica.
November 20th is the Transgender Day of Remembrance. It's also, this is probably the one time of the year where trans people all over the world get together for a reason to remember those who have passed away. We need to have some form, like during Transgender Day of Visibility, that happens what in April or March?
I think that's March 31st.
Yeah, March 31st. Yes, I remember now. Something like that has to happen when organizing, because then there'll be a lot of people that will get together. You have a day that is big for them, for everybody, the trans community, and that's when they get together. Now, obviously, marching or protesting on TDOR is not a very good idea, because that's not the reason that day exists. The Transgender Day of Visibility is that day. That's the day we need to do something.
Is that day too far in the distance for us to start organizing toward it? Would too many decisions be passed by then, or can we aim for that day?
31st of March. You'd be surprised how much you can get done between now and then.
Yeah, well, that's my concern, is that we could get a lot done between now and then, but so could the administration.
Well, there are other avenues that we can take if we plan a march for the Transgender Day of Visibility. We can also, until then, do things like emails to the Secretary of Defense, to, if you served, send them to, the branch manager, whichever chief. They all have email presence. They all have web contact, and by sending them things saying, I served, and I'm concerned about this because it made my service harder than it should have been, and now that there was hope to take it away, just doesn't seem like the military way of doing anything.
Gotcha. By the way, a suggestion that I'm getting through chat is we should have more discussions like this and in more visible channels, in more mainstream channels. Do you girls have any idea of how we can make that happen? How do we get the media?
I know I've spoken on the issue for my local paper, the Tennessean. I talked pretty broadly on the trans ban and the tweet in chief and all that stuff, trying to make it clear where I stood and where many trans individuals stand. But yeah, it's get a hold of media. They also have digital means of communication. You can call them. You can write editorials of ways that you can get media out. Even posting things on Facebook, if you post enough, it can pick up momentum. They can get linked around. People can use technology in their favor as opposed to it being used as a weapon against them.
I just went and looked as I was talking to you ladies on the air. I went and looked, and the domain resisttheban.org is available. So without much foresight as to what shape this is going to take, it occurs to me that I'm going to grab the domain in a way to start listing resources there as to and to basically centralize resources between now and the Trans Day of Visibility for events and for things that we could do together. It would be wonderful to have a YouTube channel where as many vets as possible and as many military as possible post their stories, and make it more available for other people to share on social media. So it would be wonderful to have a destination point. What do you guys think of that?
That sounds good.
Yeah.
And you can link to groups like transgender American veterans resist because they're up for a fight pretty much any day.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yes, that's why I thought of that name to align myself with it.
connecting to various resources that are out there is how you do this, because they're force multipliers. They take a small, more powerful with each individual link you put in the chain.
Mm-hmm. I like it. What other ideas do you think might be useful in one thing that occurred that I feel like I need to ask is, how can we get cisgender people to care about this? How can we get across to them that this is their issue as well, and that they start with us, but then it'll come to them too.
I mean, it's already starting to come to them with what happened this week, where they are with the birth control issue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's been, you know, it's not just, you know, this week's actions, you know, on the religious side. You know, it's not just against the LGBT, it's against now the lax on the birth control, which is going to affect cisgender straight people, you know, and bi people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of use that angle to draw them into it.
Yes,
Because,
and I feel that
you know,
it's apropos. I feel that it's apropos to read this, which all of you have heard many, many times before. I want to read the poem by Martin Niemöller.
Yeah.
First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist.
Yes.
Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a trade unionist. And then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me.
Yep.
Exactly. And there's lots of ways to get people interested in this. I mean, some of the stuff I've seen shows that this will, you know, if we're heading into a major conflict, you know, 45 is trying his damnedest to get us into, then pulling troops at all, whether they are LGBT, whether they are regular troops at all, is a bad idea because it will reduce our military readiness and it will make us more vulnerable, you know, at a time when we need to at least have the appearance of strength.
Mm-hmm.
Tearing down the military while at the same time trying to start a nuclear war does not seem like a sane choice by anyone. And so pointing that out, pointing out that our president is actually putting national security at risk pretty much daily, you know, that's starting to get through to some people. It's just a slow process. Eventually it'll reach the tipping point, but until then, you just got to keep pushing.
Yes, agreed. What can we do at the local level? What can we do in terms of personal interactions, social media, or just talking to people in our town? And to what extent is that safe in different towns?
Well, I think that there is several ways of handling that. I, for one, am a videographer, and putting together a video of the issues is something that I would do if I knew exactly what it was that people think I should put down. Because I mean, I can't come up with everything. I have done more videos about trans veterans, trans people in history that have served, people have served, and I think it's time to do something a little more mainstream and get the appropriate equipment, get a funding for this. Somebody comes up with an idea for a film, We have a lot of other people in the trans community that are very good at lots of aspects of the entertainment industry. We have people that can make the music for this. We have people that can do the lighting. People can do the sound, the audio. People can do the editing. Camera people. We have it all. Everybody, there is enough people in our community to do this, but the one thing that we don't have is the funding, the money to put together something, and we don't have a script. So there's two things that need to happen. And anybody out there listening to this, you have an idea, let's talk about it. See what we can do. A full-fledged, honest-to-goodness, full-length movie would be a big deal. But these things cost money, and we'd have to have a GoFundMe page or something for this. But you have to have a direction, and if we don't have a script, we don't have a direction. So
I have a little bit of a hesitation in terms of making a movie because of the fact that people can then choose to see it or not see it. People can choose to really not engage with it, and I'm thinking more in terms of something that they can't help but notice.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, writing opinion pieces for your local paper, sending in things, opinion pieces to local television networks, to get a hold of your local NPR, your National Public Radio. These are various ways to get information out. And if you're willing to speak on the subject, if you're willing to be visible on the subject, these are avenues you can take that will enable more people to see us, more people to interact with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it.
It does take that courage, that willingness to be the visible target. And that isn't easy for a lot of people. I mean, violence against trans individuals is on the rise, just as violence against a lot of communities is on the rise, thanks to the current political demographic.
Yes,
So,
and
yeah,
I'm going back. I
taking
just wanted to say, Monica, I'm not trying to shoot down your movie idea. I think that it's a good one. It's just a high budget one, and potentially it's hard to get. My sister tried to get me to watch a 2-hour movie on killer whales and the rights of killer whales, and my immediate reaction is that I don't have the time right now to engage in something for 2 hours. So it really lowered my my ability to engage. If she had sent me a 5-minute clip, I probably would have watched it willingly. So small dosages is one idea.
It's possible to make short movies on issues. Like a 15-minute movie is very accessible to people. It can be put together fairly quickly and hit the high points. And because Monica's idea is great, you have to increase their visibility. People have to connect to it. It's just a matter of how to get that done. Most people are used to 5 to 10 to 15-minute videos that they can see on Facebook, as opposed to going to actual documentaries.
But in general, I think that we're all agreeing that there's a few things that can be done, and they all revolve around the subject of visibility, just making our humanity known. And Ellen recently had a transgender couple, military transgender couple, on her show, and oh my Lord, thank heavens that Ellen has the exposure that she has. But I was thinking that we could do a lot of that kind of stuff also in smaller dosages in social media, each telling the stories of our individual friends and colleagues. Somebody posted on a transgender vet group recently that they are a transgender vet, but a friend of theirs had succumbed to suicide because of the difficulties that they had experienced while serving in the military and suffering from PTSD. So something highlighting the hardships that a lot of trans people are willing to endure for the sake of serving their country, I think would be pretty important as well. Monica, do you have a lot of contacts of people that could potentially be part of such a movie?
I have contacts of a lot of cis people that could be part of this too, as well. Living in Atlanta area, you know, this is the third largest entertainment area in the world. So a lot of things are done here, and that makes it easier to have contacts here. And it's something that I've barely scratched the surface on as far as that. So it's not like I don't know people. I do know enough people to get something started. But, you know, a short film, that's good. But we just need. The thing is that all these ideas are great, mainly because you have to have a whole lot of different ideas. You can't put all your activism into one basket. You know, you have social media, you have television and papers, and you have the print or the movie media, everything out there is subject to our use. If somebody gets out there, you know what, and decides that they want to do something like that. And so we can't just say that one idea will work. Many ideas will work. You know, one person that's involved in something, they can do that. Another person is so, you know.
And another thing that could work is if you feel hesitant to get involved in trans activism because you think it'll put a target on you, well, get involved in activism of any type. You know, like I said, I'm involved with Veteran Service Corps. It's an outgrowth of the Veterans Stand for Standing Rock.
Yes.
There were maybe 100 transgender vets all together with me up there in North Dakota, freezing our butts off. And we were interacting with people across the entire political spectrum. Vets being concerned on an issue, being visible. There, in just one bit of activism, you connect with people and they start to lose their preconceived notions. So if you don't feel comfortable, you know, waving the flag and, you know, saying I'm a trans, you know, vet and standing on the street corner, get involved. If people know you're trans, fine. You know, but you're still improving our visibility. You're still having a say. And just if it makes you feel safer, then that's perfect. Protest to your level of comfort.
Yes, point, by the way. And one thing that somebody raised is that we need more LGBT people in office. And I don't know if we think, I mean, there are people running for small offices in the United States. And I don't know if we have a central repository of, it would be great to have the information somewhere localized where we could find all of the different LGBT campaigns and how can we support them. Do you know where something like this would be posted? Where would we find it?
Yeah, the Victory Fund. They are out there specifically to help LGBT people run for office. You could contact their office and find out from them they would have a list of people.
I'll give them a little bit of a boost in the summit. Hopefully that'll help. Victory Fund, I'll look it up.
And
Check.
the local equality office, like here in Georgia, it'd be Georgia Equality. They know who's running locally.
Mm-hmm.
So every one of the equality offices, every one of the equality groups in each state would know who's doing that. So you contact them for your own state. So right there, you already know who's involved.
I want to bring up a thought that I'm sorry if I'm going to be a little bit. My name is Cassandra, and Cassandra mythically was a prophetess of doom. So I apologize if I'm going to take on my namesake's role for a second. And to some extent, I'm channeling Bryn Tannehill, who I spoke to not too long ago. Bryn tends to be very much the prophetess of doom herself, but she really reminds me of the way Michael Moore spoke in July 2016 about the possibility of Trump winning the election. And I guess what I'm saying is, do we have a clear idea of how bad things could get between now and 2024? And the reason why I ask is because I have this visual. I was a volunteer during the Boxing Day tsunami in 2004, and I saw the devastation caused by that tsunami in Sumatra and in Indonesia. And when I watched footage of that, what I noticed is we always have this visual, this cartoon visual of a tsunami as being this giant wave that engulfs the town. That's not how it happens. The way that the tsunami worked, at least in Banda Aceh, is that a foot height of water would permeate the town, and people would just be annoyed, and they would be stepping out in order to not get their feet wet. And while they were busy trying to get out of the low points of the street, not to get their feet wet, on top of that foot of water came another foot and a half, 2 feet of water, riding a second wave. And so now people were realizing that very soon they were up to their knees in water. And while they were realizing this, there was another wave coming on top of those 2 waves, and this was carrying 2 or 3 feet of water. And so it was gradual, but very, very quick. And the town was submerged pretty much very, very rapidly. And I'm seeing these attacks from the administration. I'm wondering about how bad do you ladies think that it might get over the course of the next few years?
I think it's potential. I mean, with track. Go ahead.
Yes, Heather.
Go ahead,
If you want to take it to the absolute doom and gloom, since he's following the fascist, you just look back to fascist classics such as Internment and all that heinousness. He's slowly trying to push LGBT people and especially trans people out of anything resembling acceptance in the community. So that's how you turn them into victims. He's following a very old playbook. Give you an idea of his hoped for state. Yeah, it'll take steps to get there, and we've been seeing them, as we mentioned earlier in this.
I'm sorry, I wasn't able to follow that. Monica, Kathy, did you hear that?
I had a hard time hearing it.
No, I wasn't able to hear it either, but I was just thinking that we gotta hope that Robert Mueller is going to be coming in and supposedly this week he's going to be doing something. So I don't know. Trump isn't going to be there for 4 years. He's lucky to make it to the end of this year, as far as I could see, in my opinion. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that doesn't necessarily mean that Mike Pence is going to be president, because he's under investigation too, and so is Paul Ryan. So the line of secession, everybody in the first tier of the line of secession is already under investigation. And what we can do, we can get the Democrats to take the House in 2018, then the line of secession would have a Democrat as the person that's available after Mike Pence. So that's something to think about, is to fight for the House to be made Democrat again.
And what are the chances of that? And how soon do you think that could happen?
Well, if Trump keeps stepping on people's toes all over the country, that there's a good chance. And anybody that he supports is going to have to live with the stamp of disapproval from the rest of the country. So if he starts supporting various Republicans' races, those people have a long road to hoe to win, and this is even in very conservative states. So we just have to fight for the people that are going to be taking the spots of these other Republicans. We only need to do, I think, 24 or 27 seats in the House, and get the majority back. So
that potentially should be a huge focus of ours.
What's that?
So that potentially should be a huge focus from the liberal base.
Exactly. Now only if the Democratic Party could handle it. They don't step on their own toes to screw things up.
I wanted to ask, to what extent is the military a Trump support? The average enlisted person, are they avid supporters of Trump, or what do you think in terms of the cisgender military population?
It's hard to say. I think that the percentage of people in the military that support Trump are just like the same percentage of people that are not military who support Trump. You're going to have the gung-ho people that lost their brain somewhere, and they're the supporters of Trump because they can't see past their nose. And then you got other people who actually have a brain in the military. There's a lot of smart people in the military, because we got a lot of things that have to be worked out by people with some intelligence. There's a lot of jobs in there that takes a highly intelligent person to do. And so a highly intelligent person has a tendency of being less supportive of Trump.
Well, I don't know if it's Trumpism that we'd be up against, or just jingoism. It seems to me that there could be a mentality of, it's not us to wonder why. It's for us to do and die and to just follow orders, right?
Yeah, you might think that there's a lot of people that blindly follow orders, but even the generals are being a little hesitant about following orders from Trump. And so, I think that if he wants to try to put his finger on the button, there may be somebody there to stop him.
Let's hope. One of my biggest heroes is Russian colonel who in 1963, I believe, at the height of the Cold War, at 2 o'clock in the morning, was sitting in a cold room somewhere on the outskirts of Moscow, and his job was to to fire against the United States, to fire missiles against the United States if he saw a sign of aggression. And it was his duty to fire. And they saw a missile, they saw an ICBM coming toward Moscow, and they went into a full state of alert. And he argued against it, and he argued against many people. And the reason why he argued is he said that the Americans have over 2,000 nuclear weapons. They would be stupid to fire one at us. And so that premise held for about 15 minutes or 16 minutes. And then they noticed that it wasn't just one ICBM, it was 6 of them coming straight towards Moscow, at which point the alarm increased tenfold, and everybody was trying to shoot him down, but it was his final decision to shoot or not to shoot. And he still insisted that he wasn't going to fire back. And I believe his last name is Petrov. He didn't fire even when it was clear that detonation was imminent and that they wouldn't even be able to stop these ICBMs. And actually, at that point, it became clear that this was a meteor shower and that their systems were malfunctioning. And he saved basically the whole world. Go ahead, Monica.
Yeah, see, the reason why you probably heard about this guy because he died just recently. I think this past week.
Wow.
There was also another Russian that kept us from going into war too during the Cuban Missile Crisis. He was
the submarine guy, right?
And
our hip hop.
Yes, and he the same thing. He had a decision to fire on a U.S. Navy ship, and he decided he wouldn't.
His submarine was carrying a nuclear warhead.
Yes, it was. So he decided he wasn't going to launch that, and consequently, he also kept out of a war.
He made a very smart conclusion because they were deep underwater and they were outside of radio contact range, and there were all these sounds being detonations going on around them. And his conclusion was that the Americans can't be this clumsy and that they would have already been sunk if the Americans were trying to sink them. So the Americans were probably trying to signal to them, come out. We know that you're out there. But they weren't meaning any harm, which is a crazy gamble, but that's what he was gambling on.
So we can only hope that we got people in our military that would, down the line, that will do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, we always have this image of the Russians being very belligerent and aggressive, and if they can display such measure, then hopefully our military leaders can also do the same. I think that we've pretty much covered all of the topics that I thought germane to cover. I've registered resisttheban.org, and it slowly I'm going to start putting something together. I don't know to what extent I'm going to be able to devote all my energies to this, but I'll get a little effort going, and hopefully others will pick it up and help out as well. And I think that aiming for Trans Visibility Day is a brilliant idea. My concern, Monica, don't you think that between now and then a lot of decisions could be made that would affect us negatively? So you're saying basically just to use that as a destination, but to also do a lot of actions along the way, right?
Yes, we know there's going to be things that are going to happen. That just means that there's going to be more things to be visible about on the 31st of March.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're going to be seeing a lot of stuff. And that's, of course, assuming that we live long enough to make it to the 31st of March.
Yes, chances are it wouldn't even be a problem anymore by then.
Yeah, you're in California. You're at ground zero.
Yeah, I think, for everything that they, if a bunch of stuff does come up between now and March, that it'd just be more stuff to give us visibility, because for everything they throw at us, we're going to stand up and fight it.
That's a very good point. Just like judo, use their actions against them.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to stand up and fight for every action they throw at against us. I know personally, I'm not going to stop. So every time they try to discriminate against me, I'm going to speak up.
Go ahead, Monica.
Yeah, the difference between now and 20 years ago is that we have a lot of experienced people out there This country is loaded with trans people that have had 10, 15, 20 years of activism experience. We have organizations now that know how to fight against these things. We have lawyers that know how to put out lawsuits against various things. We have a lot of people that are out there on the front line that can handle all this. That 20 years ago, we didn't have all this. We were just doing the activism because it's the only thing we knew. Being out there protesting and just talking to whoever we could at the time. Now we have organizations that do that for us, but we still have to be there. And a lot of times, if you can't use your voice and you can't be visible, you can also, if you have the finances, support some of these organizations because they're out there fighting, especially the ones that are fighting the ban on trans veterans. There's a couple of organizations doing that. So we need to support these people. And that's another way to help.
Perfect. Okay. Oh, wow. Now there's a humongous echo.
What's that?
Oh, there was this terrible echo for a second. It's much better now. I really appreciate the insights that you guys have shared with me. This is powerful stuff. I think that it could be the beginning of something that could be helpful. Are there any other organizations that you want to mention for folks watching? Are there any other actions that you would like people watching this to take? We have some allies, we have some trans people watching this. What would you like them to know? What would you like them to do?
There's so many organizations all around the country. You have HRC, you have the Transgender Law Center, you have National Center for Transgender Equality, you have Wabamba Legal, then all your different statewide organizations. Then you also have like Freedom for All Americans, which is another national one. Then each state has their own. Like Missouri, we have Promo as our statewide organization, and many states have their own statewide organizations you can contact and volunteer. If you don't want to put your face out there, there's a lot you can do for these organizations without putting your face out there. There's phone banking, there's letter writing, there's so many different ways that people can get involved that, without actually, putting yourself out there publicly.
Yeah, so is there a good place to get a list of these organizations?
Google them?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there's any set list.
You could Google LGBT activist organizations or equality organizations. I'm sure you'll come up with a whole list of them, national, local. So the internet is a great place to find these things.
Perfect. Okay. Well, that points me in the right direction. I think that's all that I had, and as long as there's nothing else that's left unsaid at your end, I'm thinking of wrapping this up. Would that be agreeable to you, ladies?
Yep.
Yes, fine with me.
Thank you very much.
How about the audience? Do they have any other questions?
Okay, let me see. I've gotten a little bit multitasking here. No, we've addressed the questions that have come in. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully this will be the start of something.
Yeah. Well, thank you for putting this on.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Heather. And sorry that your connection didn't work out, but your insights were appreciated.
She probably has dial-up.
All right, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for being here.